Greetings. This is not a Project Gemini update video. This is just a video that I'm finding a little difficult to do, to be honest with you. Today it was announced that Neil Peart had passed away at 67, I believe, from brain cancer. Apparently, he has been battling it for 3 years, much to the surprise of many a Rush fan, as this was news to me, and I'm sure it was news to many people that were lifelong Rush fans. I'm guessing people who were in the close circle of Neil Peart and his family knew about it and did a really good job of keeping it under wraps and, letting him have his peace and quiet while he tried to battle this rather ruthless disease that's been taking people away from us now quite a bit. Gord Downie had something similar, I believe. Brain cancer is not a fun thing, obviously, as is any form of cancer. This is shockingly close to David Bowie's death as well. As far as time period, in January seems to be when a lot of these people seem to pass away for some reason. Sorry if I babble a little bit. This is really kind of hitting me hard. You need to understand, Rush has been a band that's been with me from as far back as I can remember listening to music, since I was a small little guy, and discovering my sister's record collection in her room. And when she would be away with her friends, I would sneak in, grab a pair of headphones, and listen to whatever she had left on her turntable. And one of those bands were Rush. And I remember listening to a particular record. I'm going to show you them because I'm going to go through some of my favorite Rush records really quickly as a tribute to Neil. And when I heard this record, it changed everything for me musically. I'd never heard anything like this before. Sure, I've heard music at that point. I heard lots of bands. My sister listened to music constantly in the house. So I was familiar with all kinds of music. But this was something different, something that hit me deep and made me, years later, want to pick up a guitar and start playing. I know we're talking about Neil here and he's the drummer, but, Neil's drumming and his lyric writing have impacted me just as much, to be quite honest with you. Nobody drums like Neil Peart. I don't care what anybody says. To me, he is the best drummer, period. No disrespect to Bonham or, all these other people who are brought up in these discussions. Excuse me. The Mike Portnoys and those guys, I don't think that they hold a candle to Neil Peart, to be quite honest. So in his lyric writing is something that really inspired me as a writer myself now, to write the kind of quality stuff that he wrote over the years. And it wasn't never about partying or girls and this and that. He always had something to write about. He always had a topic to talk about, and it made you think. And I think Neil's writings are one of the few people or musicians I've ever heard of who had their lyrics used in university English courses. And I heard that from quite a few people, that a few universities used his lyrics as, reference for English lit. So that's got to tell you something about the quality of his writing. I was hoping that there might be some, reunion of Rush down the line. It was very, very hush hush whenever anybody brought up the possibility of them getting back together or maybe even making a studio album together. The topics are quickly buried and hushed, and nobody ever talked about it very much. And now we know why. He was battling this for 3 years. Chances are, I would say that he probably knew there was something wrong before that. which is probably the reason why they decided to pack things in. I mean, Neil was having some issues before with, his arms and stuff like that as well for drumming. And, I'm glad that they went out on a high note. They were, many people said that's still top performance level at that time. And I have to agree, they were fantastic. I've never witnessed a bad Rush concert ever. And I've seen my first actual concert was a Rush concert that my sister took me to see, which was, I believe, March 1984 at Maple Leaf Gardens to see Rush during the Grace Under Pressure tour. And I'll never forget that moment, and I've never missed a Rush concert in Toronto since then. So, with the exception of believe the very last one here in Toronto, I didn't get a chance to go and see that one, but I've been to every single possible Rush concert that there was, and it's not there's nothing else like it. I'm sorry to say, to go see Rush perform is an experience for a musician, and even for non-musicians for sure. And that last tour they did, the R40 tour, with the whole breaking down of the stage and everything, was absolutely brilliant concept, and only a band with their sense of humor would have came up with an idea like that, to do something like that. So hats off to them, and rest in peace, Neil. Not to sound morbid, but now I guess he's gonna have, he's gonna be able to see his wife and daughter, who passed away years and years before. I think during the test for echo period around there, his daughter died in a horrible car accident, and his wife died shortly after that. It was a terrible time, and nobody even thought that Neil would have came back from that, but he did, and we had many more years of great Rush music thanks to that. But I guess the time has come for Neil to shed the mortal coil and to join his family. It is heartbreaking because I know he leaves a family behind here as well, so my heart goes out to them as well. But I want to show a couple of albums that are very important to me. I have all the Rush records, many variations of it, but that would have took forever to do, and I don't want to sit here and go through every single Rush record that I have. But I just want to show you ones that are important to me. This is Fly By Night. This is my 1976 or 77 reissue. My favorite pressing of this. It is done by the great Gilbert Kong from Master Disc. It sounds absolutely incredible. This album is my favorite Rush album. Why? Many people ask me that. Why would this be your favorite Rush record? Well, I believe that the band were very, very gung-ho at this point. They were very hungry for success and to get somewhere. And Neil was fresh, ready to go. And the fire and energy on this record, I don't think has been matched by them on other records. That's not to say their other records aren't good. They're fantastic. But they haven't captured that fire and drive that they have on this album. I mean, just listen to like songs like Anthem and Beneath, Between and Behind and By Torn the Snow Dog. I mean, listen to the drumming on that. Like, some of the fills are unbelievable on this album. Just great, great stuff. Now a record that really changed the way I listen to live records, or what I expected to hear from live albums. This to me is my favorite Rush live album. This is All the World's a Stage. This is my 1976 Canadian first pressing. It's a bit beat up, but it sounds really, really good. It's on the Mercury Skyline label. I believe this was mastered actually at just another mastering facility, which turned into the Lacquer channel here in Canada. And they've always done fantastic work. George Graves in particular, I believe, was the one who was involved with this. you want to hear a really good live album, put this on. Okay, forget, and I know I don't want to make any enemies here or anything. Forget a live one and all those other records. Put this on, okay, with headphones on. Crank it up, turn off the lights, and you'll swear that you're in Massey Hall for this. Okay, it's that good. It sounds that good. I've always been in awe of how they captured that whole feeling of being there on this record. It's just incredible. So it's a 3 LP, I think, set, 2 record sets. Sorry, but it's like it's a rollout cover. It's not a gatefold. It opens and then it opens one more time. Lots of pictures and stuff in there. And it's a really great live album. One of the records that I'm going to also show here, that was kind of important to me, this was probably one of my very first gold stamp promo Rush records I ever got my hands on. And this is Archives from Rush, which is a re-release of the first 3 albums. And according to Discogs, I've been looking on here to see which one this is on their list, and I don't think they have this one listed. It is the gray version. As we know later, the reissues came in black, not gray. And this one has the Skyline labels on it, and it's also mastered by Gilbert Kong. All 3 albums are the Gilbert Kong stamped masters. I don't see that anywhere in Discogs, so maybe it's not listed, but as you can see there, can I get that in there? Yeah, there. Oh, there's the gold stamp in the top corner. And these albums are absolutely spotless, like near mint condition, and sound brilliant. So if you want a good way to get the first 3 records without having to buy them individually and to get a good pressing of it, try hunting this down, because they sound brilliant and you have one of the best pressed versions of them in there. But you got to keep looking for that. Look in the dead wax, look for master disc, and look for G.K. You'll have a great sounding album. This is Hemispheres. This is the 40th anniversary picture disc that came out. I have many copies of this, including the red vinyl version that came out in Canada years ago. This album, to me, represents Rush at their progressive pinnacle. It's just fantastic album, top to bottom. There's the man there in the middle, and what a great record. Side 1 is Cygnus X1 Book 2. Then we have Circumstances, The Trees, and possibly one of the best instrumental tracks ever recorded by a band in La Villa Stragiato. So, picture discs are not always the best quality as far as audio goes, but this album is worth getting in any sort of format: CD, cassette, vinyl. I think Neil at this point had really broadened his drumming. His fills were incredible at this point. Lots of, really odd meters that they would play as a band. He had all kinds of bells and glockenspiels and wood blocks and tube bells, and he really went to town. And this was at their progressive height, this album. So if you really like Rush at their progressive best, this is the album to hunt out. Now, people would say that Rush hit their stride when this album came out. This is my Dutch/Holland pressing of Moving Pictures. Moving Pictures is one of those records that bands make once in a blue moon, where every song on this album is either regarded a classic or a hit. Tom Sawyer, Red Barchetta, YYZ, Limelight, all 4 of those songs on side A are very well known and radio staples. I mean, how many bands have a whole side like that? Side B is The Camera Eye, Witch Hunt, and Vital Signs. 3 songs that are very near and dear to Rush fans around the world. maybe not as popular as songs radio-wise, but are very popular with the Rush community. This is the, like I said, the Dutch pressing of it, which is on the Blue Mercury label. Good sounding pressing, but in my opinion, if you want the best sounding one, you go with this version here, which is a 1981 Canadian pressing. I don't know if you can see that well. You know, it's on the usual label for the Canadian press. Let me see if I can get this out here. There you go. This is mastered by Robert Ludwig at Master Disc. Is it Master Disc or was that already? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Let me just take a quick peek. Yeah, Master Disc Robert Ludwig. The interesting thing is that I just noticed here when I'm looking at this, side A, Tom Sawyer, Red Barchetta, why was it Limelight? And the stamping is Master Disc RL Robert Ludwig. You flip it over though, and take a good look at it here, and I realized that I saw TLC-T, which means the lacquer channel was the one who'd mastered and did the stamper, I believe, or mastered side 2 of this, and George Graves did this side. Fantastic. No wonder this record sounds so good. You have two of the premier mastering engineers in the world that worked on this. I do believe the main version of this record had a Robert Ludwig both side version, and I'm sure there's probably a both sides George Graves, but why this one has one on each side I'll never know, but I'm not complaining because this sounds really, really good. And if you want a record that's a, you know, a fantastic sounding album, you have good songs and a great sounding record. And now here's the record that started me off on this journey, the record that was on that record player when I put the headphones on the first time and listened to Rush for the very first time. It was this album. Exit Stage Left, and I remember very well it was Spirit of the Radio, song 1, side A. This is the 2015 reissue copy. I haven't bought an original yet because I haven't found a copy that's, you know, near mint or in very good copy, a good playing version of it, sorry. But this again holds some of Neil's fantastic performances on here. I don't like this record as much as the other one because the audience is very low in this album. I mean, when they're playing, you wouldn't even know that there's an audience there. They're only brought up ever so slightly when the songs are done or before the songs. Most of this was recorded in Montreal at the Forum, and I believe side 4 or one of the sides, maybe side 3 was in London, England, I think. It's been so long since I've listened to some of these. But a fantastic record nonetheless. Great performances of songs that we love. Passage to Bangkok, Closer to the Heart, you know, Spirit of the Radio, Free Will, YYZ with one of the best Neil Peart drum solos on here. Get it just for that. We love you, Neil. And, you know, he did a great job on this album. Now, we're near the end of the records I wanted to show you, but there's a couple more I want to show here. Rush went through a period later in the 90s where I started kind of not leaving them, but I started getting a little frustrated with them. They released records like Power Windows and Hold Your Fire, which years later I came to really, really love now. I love those records, but back then I was all gung-ho for the original kind of Rush with the loud guitars and the bass and the drums and everything, and they were coming into the more keyboards and the toned down guitars with barely any distortion on it. So they were kind of losing me a little bit there. But I always went to their concerts. I always checked it out. It was always fantastic. But then, I believe the year, I'm not going to tell you because I'm going to give it away. But then one year, the radio DJ said that Rush was coming out with a new record, and they said it was a return to form. But I'd heard this so many times. They said this to me when Presto came out, and it was not a return to form. They said this when, I remember when Hold Your Fire came out, they said that was not a return to form. But when this record came out, it was a return to form, and I was in shock and happy as hell. And that's Counterparts. Thanks to Kevin Shirley, he got them sounding raw and heavier than they ever had been in years. And this is a fantastic record, or this is a return to form. This is a reissue, the 2016 reissue on the original Atlantic label, because they had changed to Atlantic Records by this point in their career in the 90s. What a great album. Stick It Out, Animate, Cut to the Chase, there's so many other ones. Double Agent. What a great album. And the return to Geddy Lee, going back to using his old Ampeg, the more growlier tones of his Fender jazz bass, no more of that wall bass anymore. What a great record. And the drumming on this is really good. Neil, he hit it out of the park. And I remember when I went to this tour, his drums, forget about it. It was just incredible. The drum solo on this tour is one of the highlights of the whole show, to be honest with you. What a great, great record. And last but not least, well, there's one more after this, but I'll explain that one after. Last but not least, I can't think of very many bands that leave the party on a high note like Rush did. Clockwork Angels. This is a great record. It only took them their whole career to make a complete concept record from beginning to end. This is it. You want to see great lyrics. You want to read great lyrics. You want to hear great music. Caravan. Let me just take a quick peek here. I'm kind of flustered still a bit about this whole thing happening, but it's been a while since I've went through this. Seven Cities of Gold, Halo Effect, Carnies, Clockwork Angels. In fact, Clockwork Angels is probably one of my favorite songs off this. This is a fantastic album. It was recorded well. It was pressed well. It sounds really good. And it's a record that I listen to very, very much, actually. Mainly on CD because I have it in my car a lot. Rarely do I get to listen to it at home, but when I do, it's a very enjoyable experience. If you don't own this, don't kid yourself. Don't think, their last record probably isn't as good as their earlier ones. Yeah, maybe it's not 2112 or something like that, but this to me is every bit as good as anything else that they did in the last 10 years, and honestly a lot better than anything that was out at the time on radio or elsewhere. So a great ending to a great career, and the master Neil put in a great performance on this album. The last thing I'm going to show is this. This is a bootleg, limited to 500 copies, Flying by Night. What this is, and it's on this kind of weird orange vinyl, is a performance, very early performance, at the Electric Lady Studios when, December 5th, 1974 in New York. They set up at the famous Electric Lady Studios to make their first ever U.S. live radio broadcast. And this is when Neil just had joined not long before. And what a great, great performance this was. And I remember when I first heard this, there was a cassette copy of this at a record store back here near where I lived back in the day. And I remember I brought it home, and I was thinking to myself when I listened to it, I was like, what is this? It was really weird. It sounded like there was 10 people in the room with them, when they were playing, because every time they'd stop playing, there was it sounded like, 6 people clapping. But years later, I figured out that it was a radio performance, and that is history. That is, music history for you right there. I'm surprised I made it through this. It's 25 minutes long, basically. I'm still very much in a bit of shock over the loss of Neil Peart. Thanks, Neil, for all your drumming and for all you did for us musically. We appreciate it. And I hope your family recovers from this great loss. And I hope us as a music community will always remember him. And I hope that there's some things done to commemorate Neil in the upcoming days and weeks and months. So that's it for me. I'm going to end it there because I'll start babbling on and who knows what I'll say. But thank you again, Neil. Thank you for the music. Thank you for the drumming. It's been incredible. There'll never be another one like you, my friend. Rest in peace.